speaking about talking a little bit more on this past weekend, I gave you some breaking news as it related to past president Donald Trump, and now unfortunately a convicted felon. Well, there was apparently a attempted assassination that has now garnered a little bit more information, or should I say news. And the report is coming out that he was grazed with a bullet, as I said, at his campaign that was going on there in Pennsylvania on this past weekend. Now, one person was killed at the rally. That person has been identified as Corey Comparator on is the name of the individual that was actually killed. And then there were two individuals who were harmed and listed in stable condition. Their names were or are David Dutch and then James Copenhaver. They were seriously injured. The officers took the gunman down, the individual who was doing the shooting, within minutes of the shots that were fired. And I heard when I listened to the video, and forgive me because I realized the audio, y'all, just was not, it didn't do it justice. And it was just because it was a little scattered. I thought at first, I was like, did I turn something off on my equipment? But it wasn't that at all. It was just a little bit low in some of the areas, and you couldn't quite hear the crowd as loud. So forgive me for that. But when I would listen to the video, y'all, I heard anywhere from 10 to 12 shots. And I could be wrong on my shots, but that's my range. I heard anywhere from 10 or so to 12 shots during that video. And according to the Associated Press, the young man, now we know as Thomas Matthew Crooks, did have some odd behavior at the rally that did get the attention of officers and security, but the young man disappeared off the radar. I believe it was so much so that they even took like a picture, and the picture was kind of floating around between some of the officers and the security guards so they could be on the lookout. But again, the young man disappeared off the radar, so they didn't know where or, what was going on. So around 6 minutes into the speech in which former 45th president was giving the speech, Thomas Crooks, using a AR style rifle, opened fire and injured two folks, killed one, and of course injured as well Trump. So the FBI said that they were going to investigate this, and as a potential, I guess they're trying to determine what is it, are they going to label it? Is it a potential act of domestic, terrorism? And the reason why I guess they don't want to clearly say that they're saying is because of the absence of a clear ideological motive by the man shot dead by the Secret Service. But again, unless that there was some kind of note, will we ever really know? So are we going to always call it the potential act of domestic terrorism? Anyway, many folks spoke out about the act of terror and political violence, including President Barack Obama and some other individuals. I will say that since the story has kind of evolved since the reporting of this past weekend, it's really more into the investigation side of things now, because the Secret Service is now facing some serious questions about the way the suspected terrorist act was handled, and has called for congressional investigations over its handling of security around the rally. And speaking of rally, this has not stopped at all. The 45th president of the United States at all. This man has continued to do what he do, and has even announced his running mate for vice president of the United States. And continuing on with that in terms of that Republican National Convention, Amber Rose, she's been catching heat for her speaking there at the Republican National Convention. And, of course, I think the heat comes from folks that's probably not necessarily on the side of being a Republican, but also the fact of what this woman has stood for as it pertains to women's rights, and actual clips that Lovely T has posted on her YouTube channel of her saying that people like, Trump and Weinstein, and that they've had violence against women or grabbed a woman by the PUSSY, like things like that really are vulgar things that's against women. They're just kind of surprised to hear her speak out about it. And I would say that it's only the folks that's opposed, but to be transparent, there's actually some folks who are on the side of the Republicans who say, why would you waste time putting someone up here like her at such a pivotal moment in the during the campaign trail? Well, Joy Reid also spoke out about the model speaking at the campaign, and shared the fact that although she does not identify as, biracial. It is, and it is maybe, excuse me, she doesn't identify as black. She is biracial. Just let me be clear about that. It's a little she has come up though through I'd say black culture, right? When you think about who she's dated, folks like Kanye West, and when you think about, the shows that she's been on, like College Hill, you think about, right? You think about things like that that gives the impression that it's deeply, rooted into black culture, especially somebody like a Kanye West, who actually has her in a rap song, right? All the things. So all of that to say, folks, both sides, I think, they had an opinion about, Amber Rose speaking. Now, I don't think that should be the focus. I think the focus should be on the fact that we got a lot of political violence that's going on, and it seems to be on the rise. Time.com reports that there have been several high profile attacks, including against Vice President Mike Pence, who was targeted as well on January the 6th, 2021. And that was actually indirectly kind of the fault. That was the fault of Trump and those supporters against his own folks there. And while law enforcement has yet offered a motive for the assassination, I do believe that this is a major concern as we see white supremacy and a political divide. It's a continuous political divide, as it always has been, but there's a different tension that seems to come with this particular political divide for some reason. And while I will not promise that I'm going to keep up with on the campaign trail, I just wanted to give a little bit out there of, what's going on as it pertains to this. I will refer you over to the Lovely T's channel. She gives a good rundown of sort of that language and conversation between Amber Rose and then sort of Joy Reid, and then helping to sort of iron some of those things out. But my concern over here on this channel really is more of, I hope that we don't continue to have more political violence. Folks are kind of giving even, a hard time to President Biden just because they say that he was diagnosed with COVID-19. And I think it's really more of better safe than sorry. And not necessarily like, oh, I'm gonna spread it over to people, but just kind of like just because of the violence. That's my belief. That's a speculation only. I do not have no inside of the FBI, the Secret Service, on I ain't got no inside yet. Not yet. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I don't have an inside, but I will say that maybe this is actually a way to more of a protection than it is necessarily a health concern. And it definitely can be both, right? But it can definitely be more of one than the other too. I gotta put it out there.